Okay, I got it picked. It took me about an hour to pick 9 carcasses. Look, all empty there. All the bones are in the garbage. I've got about, about 2 liters of meat, and I got a whole bunch of broth over here. So now what I got to do is I already scooped in here and got all the little last bits and pieces out. I'm going to take a colander and drape it into this pot, and going to take that, pour it through the colander into here. So invariably there's going to be bits and pieces on the bottom of this, and that's the way you catch them and keep them out of your broth. And I'm going to basically pour it in there, pull the colander out with the rest of the bones and meat and pieces, pick through that last bit of it, and boil the broth down a bit. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to scoop out a bit of this broth, take a bit of that meat and a few noodles, put it in the microwave with a bit of salt, and I'm going to have a bowl of chicken noodle soup. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Okay, I'm making a quick little bowl of chicken noodle soup for myself because I'm hungry. I've got some chow mein noodles from the Asian Superstore, as I call it, the 168 Market here in Ottawa. And whoops, I'm just going to put some of those in the bowl here. And there we go. I got some of my chicken. I'm going to throw a bit of that in on top, just like that. Oh, a little bit more. And my ladle. I'm going to ladle out some of this yummy broth, making sure to get some of the fat because it's so yummy. Whoops, it's hard to do this while I'm taping it. Alright. There we go, another couple more. That is going to be good. Alright, so I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in there and nuke it in the microwave, and it's going to be a lovely little bowl of soup. So you may not be able to see that there is a thick layer of fat on top, and I'm going to skim that off for now, just with a ladle. And there's a layer of scum under the fat that I want to actually skim that too. So I'm just going to put the fat into a mason jar for now because I don't necessarily want to dispose of it all. Even if I don't use it all in my soup, I will probably can the rest up so that I can have some chicken fat available when I want it. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Okay, I got almost a liter of fat off of the top. Definitely not going to throw that away. We still have a very, very thin layer of fat here, which I will keep here. And I got most of that scum off there too, as you can see. It's looking pretty good. So I am just going to turn the heat up about to half, put the lid on the thing, and let it boil for a while. Alright, so that's boiled down to about 6 liters, it looks like. I have turned off the heat, and what I'm going to do now is can up the broth in some mason jars along with the fat in separate mason jars. So this is the brand of mason jars I buy. I get them at Canadian Tire here in Canada, Golden Harvest. They're about $1 cheaper per dozen than the other jars, mainly because you don't get a fancy box to put them in. I always toss the boxes out anyway, the ones with the dividers and everything. I toss them out anyway. They don't do me any good, so I don't want to pay an extra $1 for the box. The first thing I'm going to do, given that these jars just come out of a factory, and I don't think factories are ever clean, that I'm going to put these through the dishwasher. I always recommend doing that. Okay, there's my dozen mason jars loaded into the dishwasher. I just put the jars in the bottom here. The snap lids I put into the little baskets, and the rings I just drape them over these posts like this so they don't fall through. Of course, I'm not going to run the load like this. I'm going to fill up the rest of the space with dishes because I don't want to waste electricity or water just by running a half a load. So I just did this first to show you how I place my jars in there. I'll just run a regular load and we'll continue on when that's done. Alright, dishwasher is done. You can see here I've got a couple. These are small 250 milliliter or 1 cup mason jars that I'm going to put the chicken fat into. In hindsight, I probably should have went with the tiny half-size ones actually for chicken fat. Yeah, I'll do this anyway. We'll see where we get. All I'm going to do in this case is take my jar. This is going to be a little more difficult to do holding the camera, but I'm just going to pour that in and pour it in that one. Oh, it's wonderful fat. Now this one's going to have some gunk in it, I think. There comes the gunk. Alright, I think that's all the fat. Oh no, there's still more fat there. I'll just have to pour a little more carefully so as not to get the gunk. Here comes the gunk and more gunk. I may have to put this through. Actually, we do have a fat strainer. I may have to put it through there. Let's see. There's not too much gunk in there. I'll go with that. There is still some more fat in there, but these 3 jars are full. I will apply the lids. You may notice these are actually 3 different heights, which means of course they're from 3 different manufacturers. That's kind of a pain. Fortunately, all the lid sizes are standard, and they would be the same volume, but they have slightly different dimensions. This is a pain when you're doing a multi-level can. The ones on the bottom should be the same height so that the next level isn't tippy. So I will put some lids on here, get the lids out, put them on, screw the lids, and then we will do the broth in the bigger jars. So this will be interesting to do with 2 hands. I may not be able to show you everything. Before I go into any further detail in canning, I want to soapbox here for a moment. I want to point out that this is not a home canning guide, period. I'm not going to show you the ins and outs and all the details. I'm specifically leaving out details because this is not a home canning guide. Improperly home canned goods can kill you. Enough said. Go get a book and read it. Go get 3 books and read it. That's what I did. Go to Google and search on USDA Home Canning Guide. It's a free book, really excellent. Download it, read it. Then go get another book and read that. And get another one and read it. One of the best ones I've read is Putting Food By, although it's getting a little bit dated at this point. Anyway, enough said. This is not a home canning guide. I will, however, point out a few important things. The guides always say, make sure the rim is clean. And they say to wipe it with a cloth. I find that's not good enough, actually. I like to give it a good wipe with my finger, which I'm not doing here because you have to hold the jar with one hand and wipe with the other. When you wipe it with your finger, you can really feel whether or not there's anything, any kind of a film or obstruction on the rim, or even if there's a nick in the rim. Actually, I bought some new jars about a month or so ago, and I was checking the rims even on the new jars, as I always do, and I felt a little nick that I may not have otherwise seen, and I discarded that jar immediately because it had a nick on the rim. From the material that I've read, improper seals are one of the biggest problems in home canned foods, and that comes back to obstructions on the rim here. So make sure they are clean. You just put your snap lid on, and I won't be able to show you how to make it finger tight, but all the guides say you don't crank that lid down as tightly as you can. You hold it with one hand and you screw it on until it's finger tight, not cranked right down. And so I'll just go through the rest of these jars, put the lids on and the rings, make them finger tight, and then we will go on to the broth.